Good morning. Or I will try what I learned yesterday in Creole. Bonjour. Kota a Haiti jodia. Is it okay? Okay. So I want to thank you. I want to really thank you, the government of Haiti, to invite me to be part of this wonderful, wonderful event and initiative. And I want to also thank you, the team of organizers that is making this possible. And to wake you up, I want all of us to give them a big applause to start the last day of this event. So, as they introduced me, I'm originally from Spain, Barcelona, and for the last 4 years and a half, I've been living in US, working at Harvard as a faculty associate. And since I arrived there, I've been studying one thing that I think is extremely important for all governments in the world, but also for the entrepreneurs and the young people that want to work in technologies. Because if you are producing innovation in technology, I'm sure that you have in mind that some of these ideas should be for creating public value. And when you create public value, it means that you are producing things that can be useful for the government. And in this sense, I wanted to dedicate this half an hour that we have together to explain a little bit of how we can use technology to shape the way we govern, the government, how it works, the government, how the government can relate to the citizens and to the companies and to the NGOs. So we should start with that. What is this? This is a press. The press was the main channel to spread knowledge and information at the same time where we created long time ago the tools, the way that the government communicate, relate with the citizens. So I think that we should all agree that we should move forward. We should have more than that, right? So I will start with a very short diagnosis of the situation that the governments are facing, the opportunity that the new technologies can offer them to improve the way that they govern and they interact and they engage citizens. So what happens? We have something that is the same around the entire world, and it is that the government have an image problem. When you speak with people, with citizens, with companies, with NGOs, they all agree that the government could do better. And this happens in Australia, this happens in Spain, this happens in US, this happens in Canada, this happens in Haiti. This happens in the region. So this is something that is general and it happens around the world. And when you ask why, which is the origin of this image problem that the government have, we can say that one thing is a problem that is linked to bureaucracy, how government work. So I like this definition and I wanted to share it with you. This is what is bureaucracy. Bureaucracy is the art of making the possible impossible. Because there is a lot of legislation that stop us to go fast, to give answers where we need them. This is a big problem that affects the entire world. This is not something particular from this region, from Haiti. This affects everyone. What is the other thing that affects everyone? The corruption. Corruption affects all governments in the world. And I really like this joke too. This kid asked to his father, Dad, I'm considering a career in organized crime. And the father answers, government or public or private sector, sorry. So this means that in people's minds, these are two big problems that are connected with governments, all of them. But which is the main consequence of that? So the main consequence of that is that citizens don't trust public institutions, neither governments anymore. If you ask citizens, do you trust from 0 to 10 in the government, which mark do you think that they put? around the world, in US, here, in Argentina. This problem is huge, and it's not linked to one particular leader. I want to share with you this image, because a lot of people now in US say that the problem that the government has is Donald Trump, and for him is the reason that people trust in what are they doing. But if we see data from the last 4 decades, we see that this problem goes from very far away. So this is this line that you see that is declining over time, is the line of trust in the US government. And you can see, maybe you don't see it because it's very small, but in the Barack Obama period, it was very, very low. And this shows us that this is a structural problem. This is not something that is linked to one particular leader. If you see data from Haiti, it's around 40% of people in this country trust government. And the other 60 say that not always, sometimes trust them. So what happens if we see data from the region? So from the region is exactly the same. Here you see the average of the region, of the Latin American region in this case. And you see that the maximum is a 45%, but it has been declining during the last 10 years. And now only 25% of the people in the region really trust in government. So watching all this data, we can ask ourselves, does government still matter? Do you think that government still matter? It is, yeah, it matters. It matters a lot. It's still the best actor that we have to fight for the public values, for providing social good, for at some point organizing the other actors in the economy, the private ones, the non-profit ones. And when you ask people, indeed, you realize that the public expectations of what government should deliver have actually risen. So they expect more. These are the Sustainable Development Goals approved in the United Nations. And here you see the big problems that the governments should face in the next decades. And you see that these problems are very meaningful. So government matters. They need to lead the solution of these problems. Here you have problems like poverty, hunger, the quality of the education, environmental issues. So here are the big questions that the government should work to find an answer. So, but what happens? The thing that really changed is that governments cannot solve these problems alone anymore. They need to interact with citizens. They need to interact with companies. They need to interact with platforms, citizen platforms, NGOs. These problems are so complex that they need a lot of actors working together to solve them. And the government should lead that. Indeed, we are speaking about the relational state. In the past, when the political scientists, we study government and what the government should do, we always spoke that the goal of the government should be the welfare state. This is not anymore. This is, of course, something that we should want. But on the top of this, we should also want the relational state, one state that has the capacity to provide public services, good quality public services, together with other actors. I want to recommend you one book here. If you are interested in this collaborative governance approach, this is a nice book that you should read, because it says basically that this is not also a thing that affects government. This is a thing that affects the entire economy, society, collaborative economy, collaborative education. So we are speaking about something that affects everything, but among all the things, also government. So jumping to the solution side of this problem, we should reimagine how the government can work to really improve people's lives. And here is where the new technologies can really play a role and can help us. So what are these new technologies? Why we want them? So we want them to better share information. with citizens. We want them to better share data. Some of the data that you produce as a citizen and the government compiles should be shared with the entire society. We also want new technologies to allow us to participate. Now it's very fashionable to speak about artificial intelligence, but we also have collective intelligence here. It is here. It is in the room. So the government should learn, because it's very, very difficult, very, very hard to do it, but the government should learn how to use your intelligence, how to incorporate your opinions and your knowledge to the way that they do to design policies, to implement policies, to evaluate policies. So considering this, we need to promote what we call public innovation. Why public innovation? I like this definition of why public innovation, and it's think about what other business you do know, what other sector of the economy, and especially one as big as the public sector, that doesn't seek to reinvent its business model on a regular basis. If big companies do that constantly, the government should do that constantly. What is the problem here? I will put my last joke of the presentation here. So this is a very good one. This is one public employee that has an innovation idea and goes to speak with his boss. And the boss answers this. The boss answers, the public official answers, this really is an innovative approach, but I'm afraid we cannot consider it. It's never been done. It's never been done before. So I think that this is pretty significant of the problem that we can face when we try to introduce new things, new approaches to public administration. So let's jump to this open government, e-government thing. So the first thing here to highlight is that open government, we should speak about open government, how to open the government using new technologies to do all this listening, all this transparency. But this is not e-governments. I mean, when we use technologies, we don't need to mechanize, to automatize what we are doing the same way we are doing it, and now do the same using new technologies. This is not the answer. We should rethink, considering the opportunities that new technologies give us, we should rethink everything. We should rethink the procedures. We should rethink how we work, how we collaborate. So this is an important thing. Open government is not the same that e-government. Which is the second thing? So the second thing is that when we do that, we can do better than voting. Voting is necessary. Voting is the basis. But we can go further than this. When we speak about open government, we are speaking about the DNA of democracy. Democracy itself needs open government. It improves the quality of the democratic system. And what we want to know, what we want to know when we think about it. So to put it easy, we want to know how things are decided and how money is spent. So these are the two basic things that we want to know, and transparency and technology can help us with this. So considering this, I want to share with you the two biggest approaches that governments can have to introduce all this open government innovation approach. So the first one is transparency. Transparency is share the information about what we do and how we spend the money, but also about the public data that the government has. Each government has a lot of data of their citizens, and this can create business. This can create opportunities for the people to do things. And transparency is very important, and indeed we have a lot of good examples around the world about governments that started to work on this direction. I want to share you just a couple here. So for example, what is transparency about? In New York, the public schools decided to make public the qualification of the quality of the school. So they rate the programs, the success of the students, the quality of the professors. They rate everything. And the city council make this information public for the citizens, so parents can decide in which school they want to put their children, but knowing the quality of the school in different dimensions. This is a nice example. Another nice example, for example, in Sweden, they do the same with the hospitals. So for each disease, they publish the quality of the treatments, the results, everything. And this is very interesting because one citizen can decide if he has a heart problem where he or she needs to go. This is one example that is meaningful. Another example linked to open data is, for example, this in UK. In UK, they use the data that all of us produce when we are walking around with our cell phone. The GPS signal indicates to the mobile companies where we are. So the government did an agreement with these companies to have this information, and with this information, decided to change completely, knowing the movements of all citizens that walk or take the car during 1 year. They decided, having this information, to reallocate 30,000 bus stops to better adapt where they are, considering the needs of where the people live, where the people work, etc. So this is another good example of what we can do with transparency from the government side. But transparency alone here is not enough. And I want to focus my explanation from now onwards on the second dimension that I mentioned, that is participation. So participation can mean a lot of things, and I will put you a few examples of what we mean. Some tools that are very common in countries that promote citizen participation, for example, one of the most common things is the participatory budgeting. Participatory budgeting is basically to co-decide with the citizens some parts of the budget, how we should spend the money that we want to invest in this neighborhood. The neighbors know much better which are the needs of the neighborhood, so it makes sense to consult them how we can spend this money. Another thing that is pretty usual to find is the discussion forums. When the government open one forum, for example, for university education, and ask the university students what they think, what they want, and people can put opinions, ideas, can rate the other opinions. So these are two tools that are pretty frequent. If you are interested in that, there is a tool that you can consult that is called Participedia. It's the Wikipedia of participation. So it's a web page where you will find all the experiences around the world linked to participation. You also have this book that is wonderful, that is the Public Participation Handbook. Here it explains from an organizational point of view what you should do to organize and to make possible this participation. But what happens normally with all this participation experience? They normally make 3 mistakes that I want to share with you. The first mistake that they do is that they normally want to collect all this experience, the opinion of the people. And collecting the opinion of the people is very good and is very important, but it's not enough. You have opinions, but you also have a lot of knowledge that comes from your experience, your life experience, your training, your job. So we should move the focus of the participation. We should ask opinions, but we should also ask for the knowledge that the citizens have. The second thing, the second mistake that normally governments do when they do this kind of policies is that they focus too much on legitimacy. And they understand that if more people is giving their opinion, the decision, the final decision, will be more legitimate. And this is true, and this is good. But here, my concern is that we should move further. It's about legitimacy, but it's also about the quality of the policies. How can we improve the final product? How can we improve the implementation? How can we improve the services that we provide to citizens? So legitimacy is okay, opinion is okay, but we should move further. We should go to collective knowledge. We should go to quality of the final decisions. Which is the third mistake that governments do normally when they do these kind of things. So the third mistake is that they try to collect a huge amount of information that after they don't have the capacity to digest. because it's very time consuming. When you ask a question to the people, if the people get really excited, you will have 1 million answers. And you should at some point read those answers, because if not, citizens will feel very bad because they invested time to participate, and they wait an answer. So these are the 3 big mistakes that normally governments do when they promote participation. So in this sense, when we want to open the opportunities that we have to participate, governments should think about the traditional law and policy-making cycle. And here you have the stages that we normally list when we think this way. The government first, when they want to approve a law or they want to approve a policy, first they need to detect which problem they want to solve. This is the first stage of this cycle. After, when they have the problem, they need to build the agenda setting. How are they going to at some point solve this problem? When they have the agenda, they need to define the alternatives. If you want to improve communications in one city, you can put more public transportation, you can do a lot of things, you can put more parkings, you can do a subway, you have different alternatives here. After, you need to draft the policy, you need to draft the law, you need to make a final decision, you need to implement this decision, and you need to assess, to evaluate how was this policy or this law working at the very end. So we have engagement opportunities at each stage of this cycle. And I wanted to share with you a few examples, one per stage, of things that are doing in other parts of the world. So, I want to share these examples with you because these examples are all innovation solutions built by the government or by entrepreneurs using technology. And I think that this can inspire you about things that you can build here and you can use in the government, in the local government, in the national government, in any level of government. So about identifying problems that the government needs to solve. Here I want to share with you the example of Reykjavik in Ireland. What they do, they created a forum, a tech webpage, a regular forum page, where citizens can put the ideas that they have, not the opinion, the ideas that they have to solve problems that are meaningful to them. And they can do 2 things. They can suggest a new problem, or they can evaluate if they think that the problems that other people suggested are meaningful. And they put a like, and this means that they think that this is worthy. What are they doing on the government side? So at the end of the month, they select the 5 ideas that have a stronger support. And they have the compromise, the public compromise, to discuss these topics and to try to suggest a solution for those problems. And they do it very well. And they have been doing that for the last 4 years. And citizens are very engaged. And each month, they have more participation of citizens doing this. About the alternative, when you think about the alternative to solve a problem, here I want to share with you one example from Taiwan. In Taiwan, they do a different thing. The government, also using a web page, suggests problems that they want to solve. So here is the government setting the agenda. And they do a big effort to collect the opinions of all stakeholders that are interested in that topic. They use that to solve problems like how they should regulate Airbnb or Uber, or this kind of topics that are very new in our societies. And what they do is that if the stakeholders reach a consensus, the government has the compromise to implement the consensus that they agreed, if it's legal. And if not, they need to justify why are not doing that. So this is also a very interesting example in Taiwan. Another example about the drafting, how we can draft a law, a regulation, or a policy together with citizens. Here I moved to France. In France, they have a web page where they put the articles of the laws and the people can comment. And after the government give feedback to the people, And they say, your idea, we decided to incorporate your idea, or we are not going to incorporate your idea because, and they give an answer. So citizens know what is going on. Another good example about decision is this one in Colombia. In Colombia, they have an app that is called Mi Senado, My Senate. And what they do is that people can vote at the same time that the congressmen and the Senate men are voting. So the people that are representing the citizens know the opinion of the citizens before they vote. So this is another interaction that is quite interesting. About implementation policies, here I want to put one example from Australia. What they do in Australia, and is something that you can really do here in this incubator, is that the government define challenges, social challenges. And they have an incubator where digital entrepreneurs discuss, design, and suggest solutions to the government. And they do a kind of competition. The government select the one that they prefer, and they give some money to make this implementation real. And this is something that it works very, very well. About assessment, evaluation. Here I want to show with you one example from Brazil. In Brazil, they have a platform that is called Promise Tracker. You can find this platform and learn more about how it works. But basically, they use this to evaluate policies. Last year, they wanted to evaluate the quality of the food and the infrastructures that they had in the public schools around the country. And using this app, they make a call, and all students from all ages in public schools put their opinion, and they did a public evaluation of the policy. This is another very powerful resource. Okay, after having these examples, I just want to give you, because basically citizen engagement and civic engagement is very hard, six very fast recommendations on the government side. So the first recommendation is that the government, when they design these kind of mechanisms, they should do it thinking in their needs, but also in citizen needs. So, for example, they cannot do something that they cannot process after. If they want to ask an open question and they think that they are going to have 1 million answers, this is not feasible normally to process afterwards. So they need to optimize this equilibrium about what they want, what the citizens want, what they can do. Design to achieve the desired goal is the second recommendation that I want to do. And this means that before starting, the government should be sure if they want opinions, they want ideas, they want data. Citizens can also share data, that it can be very useful, but you should know this in advance. After, the government should identify who will manage the process. You need people inside the administration. The administration is not a black box. You need people. If you create more work, you need more people to do that. So they need to reorganize internally to be able to properly manage these kind of initiatives. The fourth recommendation is that they should focus on incentive for people. They should make clear why you should spend your time participating. You should know what is going to happen with your opinion, with your idea, after you enter these platforms or you go face-to-face and do these kind of things. The fifth recommendation that I want to do is that you should explain clearly how to participate. People don't know how the government works inside, and it's not their job. So government should make this kind of participation easy for citizens, explaining what happens after. Are they going to receive an individual response, a collective response? What will happen? And finally, the last recommendation this is a very important one, is that the government should communicate the citizens the final decision. If you ask for the opinion, people want to know what's going on after. So this is a very important thing to consider too. And finally, one thing is that this is difficult. There are a lot of governments that are doing nice things around the world, and we can try to learn from them, and we should do it. But we should also try. It's an experimentation field. So here the experimentation is very, very important. And I don't want to waste more time because I think we will have some questions. And I want to thank you all for your attention. So we can move to questions?
We have no more time. No more time for questions.
So we don't have time for questions, but you can ask me questions. I will be here all day, okay?
Good.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you to Victoria Alsina, professeure de Harvard University, bien sûr. Il faut le souligner. Et ça va très vite ce matin. Nous ne sommes plus dans l'heure, vous l'aurez compris. Donc, les présentations se passent ici. On va aller rapidement.